Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller.
Any attempt by this president to remove Special Counsel Mueller from his position or to pardon key witnesses in any effort to shield them from accountability or shut down the investigation would be a gross abuse of power and a flagrant violation of executive branch responsibilities and authorities. These truly are red lines and simply cannot allow them to be crossed.
Well, the White House says it has no intention of firing Mueller. So is Warner making much ado about nothing? Let's discuss now. Ambassador Nicholas Burns, a former U.S. Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs, joins us now. Ambassador, thank you for joining us. Listen, it's pretty extraordinary for Senator Warner to make these comments on the floor today. What do you think of what he said?
Well, I think he's right to issue the warning. President Trump, after all, fired the FBI director, James Comey, several months ago, so he's shown he's capable of this. And we learned during the Watergate hearings and the Watergate drama 4 decades ago that no person in our society is above the law, including the President of the United States. And so this investigation has to continue. It's being conducted by one of the most reputable and distinguished and trustworthy people in our society, Robert Mueller.
Yeah. The senator also told CNN, Ambassador, that he was worried that the president could move to fire Mueller next week when members are home for the recess. I mean, with the legislative tax victory today, do you think the president could feel more empowered to act from his gut as we have seen him do in the past?
Well, let's hope he doesn't. This process has to continue. The charges here are very serious. We have to get to the bottom of what Russia did, both during the 2016 campaign and its major assault on our election, and whether or not there is any kind of collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russian government. That hasn't been proven. And there's always the possibility that President Trump will emerge from this without any charges whatsoever, although others who have worked with him will not, obviously. But Russia is the issue here. And I must say, as someone who spent my life in foreign policy, that President Trump is exhibiting behavior towards Putin, I think, is very puzzling towards everybody. There's this assault on the American election. There's Putin's invasion and occupation, annexation of Crimea. President Trump doesn't want to go forward with sanctions. The Senate voted 98-2 to impose sanctions, and those sanctions have not yet been implemented by the Trump administration. Congress makes the laws in our society, not the executive branch. So the president, I think, is acting in a way that none of his predecessors would have. The first job of the president is to defend this country. There was an assault on our election by our strongest adversary in the world. The president has to stand up to President Putin, but doesn't appear willing to do so. And that's what really, I think, that's a national security challenge that the president has produced, and it's a weakness on his part.
Ambassador Burns, let's talk a little bit more about that. You mentioned people who may or may not be involved in the Russia investigation. I want to get your thoughts on what New Jersey Governor Chris Christie said in an interview last night about Jared Kushner and the scrutiny he is under with the Mueller investigation. Here it is.
I'm telling you that he deserves the scrutiny. You know why? Because he was involved in the transition and involved in meetings that call into question his role. Okay. Well, then if he's innocent of that, then that will come out as Mueller examines all the facts. And if he's not, that will come out too.
Why do you think this is significant?
Well, it may be significant because of things that have happened in the past between Governor Christie and Jared Kushner. You know, we're not in a position to know, just listening to the press reports as to exactly what happened in the 2016 election. But there's enough smoke that warrants this investigation. The investigation has to go on, and Director Mueller will determine at some point that the investigation is over, and we'll see what the verdict is. But until then, it's very difficult for any of us, and I think it'd be unfair for me to say anything disparaging about Jared Kushner, because I simply don't know what he knew.
Well, you're talking about the relationship between the governor and the Kushner family. It's been contentious because as U.S. Attorney in 2004, Christie prosecuted Kushner's father for tax evasion and other charges, served 2 years in prison, was found guilty. But let's move on. Ambassador Burns, an emergency UN General Assembly meeting is being called for tomorrow to vote on a resolution that criticizes the UN's recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Yesterday, U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, tweeted this out in response. She says, at the UN, we're always asking to do more and give more. So when we make a decision at the will of the American people about where to locate our embassy, we don't expect those we've helped to target us. On Thursday, there will be a vote criticizing our choice. The U.S. will be taking names. That's pretty strong. And earlier this afternoon, President Trump had this to say at a cabinet meeting. Watch this.
Let them vote against us. We'll save a lot. We don't care. But this isn't like it used to be where they could vote against you and then you pay them hundreds of millions of dollars and nobody knows what they're doing. The people that live here are great citizens that love this country. They're tired of this country being taken advantage of, and we're not going to be taken advantage of any longer.
So Ambassador Haley and the President are threatening to withdraw billions of dollars from countries who vote against them. Is that appropriate?
I don't think so. I must say, Don, I think this is extremely ill-advised by the Trump administration, by the President and Ambassador Haley. I'm kind of surprised that Ambassador Haley's doing this. I don't know if she's been ordered to do this, but it's not going to be effective. You know, we're a great country. We're the leading, strongest country in the world, and our best presidents, our most effective presidents, they led with self-confidence. And they led with supporting our allies. There are thousands of votes in the United Nations General Assembly and the Security Council. You win some, you lose some. You can't bully your best friends in the world. Germany, Britain, France, these are countries that have voted against us on the issue of Jerusalem. And so I don't think it's going to work, and I think I'm afraid that some countries will just double down in their vote against the United States because they have domestic politics too. They can't bow down publicly to threats from the President of the United States. And let's remember, Don, what's at the heart of this. President Trump overturned nearly 70 years of American foreign policy by getting ahead of the Israelis and Palestinians, proclaiming that Jerusalem was the capital of Israel. No American president had done that. He's isolated on this issue internationally, and now he's striking out. It's not effective. So what's the fallout?
What fallout do we face from that?
Well, I think it casts us in the light of a bully, of threatening our friends in the world. Mark Landler wrote a very good piece in the New York Times today about this, and he asked the question, so are we going to take the $1.3 billion that we give to Egypt for economic and military assistance every year away from Egypt? Egypt's a very close friend of the United States. In fact, President Trump has very good relations with President Sisi, the Egyptian president. I don't think Trump is going to make good on the threat. And if you threaten something and then don't even fulfill the threat, then you look weak. So I think this is an embarrassing spectacle of American diplomacy going in the wrong direction.
Ambassador Burns, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Don.
And when we come back, President Trump's private lawyer set to meet with Special Counsel Robert Mueller and his team by the end of the week.